Indigenous People Groups in America, presented by Alysse Harris. We start with the 5 civilized tribes. The so-called 5 civilized tribes were made up of 5 indigenous people groups on the east coast of America when European settlers arrived. These groups were the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Muskogee or Creek, and Seminole tribes. These tribes were called civilized as they were the first 5 indigenous groups that were most willing to adapt to the societal expectations of the European settlers. Other tribes spread across the continent were referred to as savages for not bending to the desires of settlers. The Cherokee and Chickasaw are the first 2 of these 5 tribes that we'll cover. Today, the Cherokee Nation is the largest indigenous group in North America. Cherokees could be seen as either allies or enemies to European settlers. In this image, we see a Cherokee family and an enslaved person being pushed west under the watch of a United States soldier. The Chickasaw Nation was involved in the Civil War on the side of the Confederacy. Chickasaw people were also required to relinquish their independent governments to the United States government in 1898. Here we have an image of the Bloomfield Academy, a residential school for Chickasaw women that has historically damaged many girls. Now we have the Choctaw, Muskogee, and Seminole tribes. There are 2 federally recognized Choctaw tribes today, one in Mississippi and one in Oklahoma. The Mississippi Band was formed by Choctaws who refused to relocate on the Trail of Tears. This painting by George Catlin depicts Choctaw natives playing stickball. The Muskogees have a common name, which is Creek, but Muskogee is proper. The Muskogee formed alliances with several nearby smaller tribes, and here we have an image of Chief William McIntosh, who was very loyal to the U.S. government. The Seminoles call themselves the Unconquered People. They are the descendants of only about 300 natives who evaded military capture in the 1800s. We have an image here depicting a traditional Seminole dance being performed in the modern day. As for the religions of Native American tribes, they differ quite a bit from the past to the present. So in the past, the Cherokee followed a religion that was based around harmony, and they practiced ceremonies that were performed to prevent disasters. They also believed in, but greatly opposed, witchcraft. In the present, Cherokee mostly follow Christianity. It was introduced to them by Christian Priber. Some do still practice older traditions, but Baptist and Methodist are the most common denominations of Christianity among Cherokee. And here we have an image of an artist's depiction of the Cherokee green corn ceremony, which was a traditional ceremony. As for the Chickasaw, they've always believed in a higher power, and in the past, they followed a religion that was tightly intertwined with nature. They had a supreme being called Abba Benili. In the present, they still have a lot of traditional knowledge and beliefs that have been passed down through generations, and great importance is placed on the experience of elders. Family history is also extremely important in Chickasaw culture. Here we have a photograph of a modern Chickasaw Sundance. The Choctaw in the past, their religion was largely unrecorded up until about the 1800s, but what we do know is that they often looked to the stars for spiritual inspiration, a practice that came about long before modern astronomy. They also felt very strongly about the more mysterious parts of life, such as weather and childbirth, which were things that they did not yet have the knowledge to understand the way that we have in the modern day. They also believed in a singular creator. In the present, most Choctaw natives practice Christianity. Their belief in a singular creator made Christianity a lot easier to integrate into their culture. And many Christian churches on Choctaw grounds support continual practice of traditional ceremonies and dances. Here we have an image of a use of a drum during a modern Choctaw religious ceremony. The Muskogee in the past believed in witchcraft. However, it was an offense punishable by death. This is relatively similar to the Cherokee, who believed in but strongly opposed witchcraft. They also believed that wizards could enter the bodies of birds, most specifically the horned owls, and they avoided these birds if at all possible. They also believed that people had 2 souls. In the present, many Muskogee incorporate a mixture of traditional practices and modern Christianity into their beliefs, and they prioritize cultural preservation. Here we have an image of a modern Muskogee cultural practice, incorporating both modern and traditional elements. As for the Seminole tribe, in the past, they held a strong belief in the creator, breath giver, or God, but they actively resisted Christianity following the Indian Removal Act and the Seminole Wars. They felt threatened by Christianity because it was the religion of their oppressors. In the present, however, Seminole have embraced Christianity over generations because they've realized that Christ was not who forced them out of their homes. In fact, 2 original Seminole-ran Baptist churches are still operating in Big Cypress, Florida as of 2026, and Christianity is now the primary religion of the Seminole tribe. Here we have an image of a speaker presenting at the 65-year anniversary of Big Cypress First Baptist Church in Florida. The church was partially founded by Josie Billy in 1948. Impact of Native American religion on the U.S. Religion was once a point of contention between European settlers and Native Americans, understandably so. In a lot of ways, European settlers used their Christian beliefs as a way to drive most Native Americans out of their homes and off the land that was rightfully theirs. Those that pushed back and were not driven away formed resentment towards Christians and Christianity as a whole. If we look specifically at the Seminole tribe and how they were impacted by the Indian Removal Act, we will see a group that took out their frustrations on the one thing they could access without being harmed: the religion of the men who had hurt them. In many ways, it is a miracle that so many Native communities have turned to Christianity, but it is also beautiful to see how so many have built their own relationships with God, in spite of all the harm that has come to them at the hands of so-called Christians. The Native Americans' ability to turn to the Lord after all that's been done to them in His name is evidence of the fact that one's relationship with God is theirs and theirs alone. The impact of Native American technologies. Early Native Americans made technological advances in countless categories, but there are 5 that stand out the most. These 5 are tools, hunting and gathering, agriculture, battle gear, and transportation. Native American technologies were made possible by years of innovation and trial and error, all of which we still practice today. Many hunting practices used today were actually started by Native Americans many centuries ago, including the developments of drop and net traps. Airtight containers, which we use all of the time today, were also used by Native communities to preserve perishable foods longer. They developed better tools, and that allowed them to begin growing and harvesting their own foods rather than foraging. And like any other civilization, Native American communities did face conflict between different communities. And that allowed them to develop more efficient battle gear and weapons, like longer, more aerodynamic designs for arrows. Native Americans also had early advancements in footwear. They developed things such as sandals, moccasins, and boots to protect their feet during travel. Here we have images of 5 Native American developments. We have spearheads made out of rock and bones, canoes, a pair of moccasin boots, a bow and arrow set, and a drum. War and Native Americans. Native Americans played a role in several wars throughout American history, with one of the most notable being the Revolutionary War. Some tribes struggled with who to ally with during the Revolution. Mainly those in close proximity to British forces did choose to side with the British, while others sided with the Revolution, knowing they had been wronged by the British since the beginning. Some tribes tried to remain neutral, but that proved to be difficult in a world that was being completely devastated by war all around them. Despite their roles in the revolutions, the wants and needs of Native Americans were largely ignored following the revolution's victory. Many tribes had their land stolen out from under them by the very people they had just spent years supporting. Here we have an image of some soldiers and some Native Americans associating most likely during wartime. The rights of Native Americans. Treaties were consistently being proposed for the rights of Native Americans between 1774 and 1832. For a time, Native American land was considered separate from the rest of the United States. It actually required a passport for non-natives to enter that land. But in 1832, that practice ended, and Native American land did start to become considered domestic. However, it was still separated from the rest of the United States. It was no longer considered a separate country, but it wasn't necessarily part of the United States as a whole yet. Eventually, Congress decided that Native American land would no longer be separated from the United States at all, Instead, the U.S. stopped recognizing Native Americans as independent nations, which made them legally part of the United States. And here we have a map of land given up by the Cherokee Nation to the United States government in 1817. Native Americans and the founding documents. Native Americans played a major role in every part of the development of the United States as a country, so it's no surprise that they also played a role in the founding documents of the nation. Many of the founding fathers had direct relationships with different Native American communities and had studied and been influenced by their styles of government. The Iroquois Confederacy played a major role in the style of government chosen for the United States, as Benjamin Franklin had worked closely alongside them and had studied their form of government. It was John Adams who ultimately suggested the studying of Native American government systems for the United States, which resulted in the 3 branches of government that we know today. Here we have an artist's depiction of New York Governor William Burnett meeting with Native American leaders in 1821. And here we have a first page of sources cited and a second page of sources cited. Thank you so much for your time.